From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360, our flagship station in the Philadelphia area, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7, and a whole bunch of others. And joining me today is the Patriot from the Garden State, and that is my very good friend, Anna Little. Anna, welcome. Welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
It's great to be with you, Rick.
Great to have you with me once again, Anna. And my gosh, Anna, we live in such interesting times. It seems like just a week ago we were here together on this show, and so much has happened. So much has happened in the last 7 days. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, we had this number one entertainer, Donald Trump, that looked like he had the front runner position to be the presidential nominee on the Republican side. And then after the Iowa caucuses, it looks like Ted Cruz is on the conservative lead and Donald Trump is behind him. But the most surprising event that we've had happen in the last 7 days is the up and coming of Marco Rubio in the third place spot. And now that we're looking forward to New Hampshire, which I think is early next week, Tuesday, I think, we're going to be really watching this Marco Rubio and what happens to him in the more liberal Republican caucuses there in New Hampshire. Remember, there's that wild card effect in New Hampshire where anybody without declaring affiliation can walk on in and vote for a candidate, and there is no obligation to have been of that party affiliation ahead of time. So New Hampshire's a really interesting place, and it'll be interesting to see how Marco Rubio does.
Wow, that's a great point you made, Anna, that I forgot about that. Anybody could walk in and vote for any way they want, and you're right about that. You're right about that. In New Hampshire, I don't see it as a conservative bastion of power. So
no, it is not.
No, it is not. So somebody like Marco Rubio might do very well in New Hampshire. I mean, somebody who was a member of the Gang of Eight, somebody who's for amnesty, yeah, probably do very well in New Hampshire.
It's quite possible. I think that Marco Rubio may have learned a lesson or two by the public outcry among conservatives whose support he has sought, unsuccessfully, obviously, with his stance on immigration. But I do believe he wants that conservative support. So we'll have to see where he is on immigration today. I think it's been his position that something needs to be done. And I think he has attempted to make compromises, which obviously the conservative right does not support. So it'll be interesting where he is on that issue. Remember, too, that whoever we choose through this nominating convention does need to win in the general election against either Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. Now, we didn't talk about that yet, Rick. What a surprise Bernie Sanders in Iowa has been. We expected Hillary Clinton to walk away with that, and it did not happen.
Well, Anna, you were so right there. And I can remember when Bernie Sanders first announced he was running for president, that I'm thinking, oh, my God, what a joke. What is he doing that for? I mean, to me, it was like a person who walked in the room who no one ever saw before. And right away is going to run for president. I thought, what a joke. What a joke this is. I expected Hillary to be there. I expected that there may be some others, but it's really, the pickings are really pretty slim on that Democrat side.
Well, I think it's also the extremism of Bernie Sanders. He is an extreme, self-declared socialist. And currently in the Democratic Party has gained quite a bit of support. So it's very surprising.
It is. I saw a very cute little political cartoon, if you will, today, Anna, and I think I put it up on the Conservative Commandos. Oh, yeah, here I did. I put it up on the Conservative Commandos Facebook page. And to describe it to you, it is a hippie-type looking character taking a selfie picture with Bernie Sanders. And this hippie-yuppie type character is saying, Bernie, I love your promises of free stuff. How are you actually going to pay for it? And this hippie-yuppie looking person is asking this question as he's taking this selfie with Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders is reaching behind the guy, reaching into his pocket and pulling out his wallet, pulling out the guy's wallet. So that's how Bernie Sanders is going to pay for all this free stuff?
But we have to remember, too, that there is a limit to how many tax dollars are available. Remember, government has no money unless they take it from you and me. And I don't know about you, Rick, but I don't have a whole lot of money that I can give to anybody. Well, this economy is not in recovery, as Barack Obama would have us think. And, it's been a struggle for everyone.
Yes.
And I just think if we continue to rely upon tax dollars, we're going to end up in the same situation as Greece. And that wasn't that long ago, and no one's talking about that in this Bernie Sanders campaign. What happens when you get to the point of no return, that breaking point, like the country of Greece has? I mean, what happened? What chaos there?
Well, we had a guest last week here on the Conservative Commandos radio show who was talking about the bills for everything that Bernie Sanders has suggested. Okay, all the free stuff. The bill for the free stuff would come to about $13.6 trillion, Anna. $13.6 trillion.
Wow.
Over the next 10 years. So let's look at it this way. The federal government is already nearly $20 trillion in debt. So close to it, might as well call it $20 trillion. It's going to hit it pretty soon. Add another $13.6 trillion to that. That's $33.6 trillion. Give you an idea, the government brings in about $2.2 trillion a year through everything, all taxes, all fees, whatever way, they have to bring in money. They have to bring in money. They bring in about $2.2 trillion a year. So that in itself, you would need that, just about that much, just to pay for all the free stuff that Bernie Sanders wants to give away. And it's not free. There is no free out there.
There's no such thing as a free lunch. Somebody has to pay for it.
Damn right. Somebody does.
And government has no money. They have to take it from you and me. So we have to pay for it.
And we see around the country, again, Anna, just the other day we had a guest here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, was telling us about how Puerto Rico, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, is about to go bankrupt. And how they're looking to the federal government to bail them out. Well, let's say the federal government does the politically correct thing to do and bail out Puerto Rico. Well, then you got California that's $20 trillion in debt. What's to keep the state of California from going bankrupt and expecting the federal government to bail it out? And then you got the state of New Jersey, who's about $3 billion in debt. And by the way, that debt is going to get much, much bigger with a couple of things in it. Say New Jersey goes belly up and declares bankruptcy, and the federal government bails them out. Well, all the other states are going to see this and say, hey, we'll do the same damn thing. We'll do the same damn thing. Let the federal government, we'll just spend and give away and give away. let the federal government come bail us out, and what it's doing, and you're killing the goose that laid the golden egg. You're killing the goose that laid the golden egg. You know, people right now are insane. And for instance, locally in a local school district, the Deptford Township Board of Education wants to float a $100 million bond issue. Now, $100 million is 1/10 of $1 billion. But they want to float this bond issue for things like redecorating the auditorium and expanding the weight room and renovating kitchens and things like this. Very little of this money, by the way, is going to educate students. Oh, but you know, you put people in power. You already give them, they already get $73 million a year. And we're talking about a local school district. Well, they just want to spend and spend and spend. And of course, the excuse is, well, it's for the children. So you multiply this times every school district in New Jersey. Multiply this by every school district throughout America. That people need to learn fiscal responsibility, Anna. Maybe it's not being taught in school, I don't know, but it doesn't seem like anybody knows anything about fiscal responsibility anymore.
Well, I think the trouble is everybody feels desperate, Rick. At this point, as I said, we're not in an economic recovery, as our president would have us think. And people are realizing, as they feel the pinch, that it is harder and harder to make ends meet. And especially this generation of young adults, now with the eligibility to vote, and looking down the line, they are not attending college, as you and I did. They are looking more toward what kind of trade can I get qualified to do, because I don't want that college debt on top of the government debt that I'm trying to pay off through my taxes.
Yeah.
And these folks have just entered the workforce, and they don't have a lot of hope. And so when they hear a Bernie Sanders coming out saying, I'll give it to you for free, that education that you're afraid of, I'll get it to you for free. And that all is well and good when you're in the mentality that, oh, mom and pop will take care of it, and mom and pop kids me out, well, let's have the government take care of it. They need to grow up just a little bit more to realize that the government is nothing but a sham. They don't have anything unless they take it from you. So what Bernie Sanders is promising is really a slippery lie, because you're going to end up paying for it. There is no way around it unless you sit on your butt and collect for the rest of your life. And if most people do that, we end up like Greece. It's common sense.
It is common sense. And, you know, with the other thing, people, you know, Anna, I have to tell a little story. I can remember when I was about 8 years old, I wanted a pony more than I wanted to breathe. And my father and I went somewhere, and my dad bought some lumber, and he paid for it with a check. Wow, I saw that, and the lights went off. Daddy, buy me a pony. Well, Rick, how are we going to pay for it? He called me Ricky, by the way. Ricky, how are we going to pay for it? I said, well, Daddy, just write a check. And my dad taught me something at 8 years old that I'll never forget. You've got to have money in the bank for that check, to cash that check. And this is something that people don't realize. For instance, I use this example of this $100 million school bond issue in Deptford Township. Oh, we just go out and borrow the money. Well, let me tell you, that borrowing that money has a cost. Over the 30 years of this bond issue, the cost is the taxpayer has to pay back $207 million. $207 million to refurbish auditoriums in schools that in 30 years, that school is going to be 85 years old. I mean, come on, people. This is just an example, but we have to use our common sense here. Yeah, you want the pony, but we really can't afford it. So let's get realistic. Hey, Anna, sorry, we need to go to a break. And you are listening to Conservative Commandos with Anna Little and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia. You know, these governments, I have to interrupt, these governments think, oh, we'll just tax. We'll just take more of the people's money. That's all. We'll just take more of the money. Don't go away, Ed and I'll be right back right after this break.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Businessman there, drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
You are right, Congressman West. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, please check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. Log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com at 1 p.m., roarradio.net at 9 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. And now you can hear all the shows here at WNJC 1360 that are part of the Conservative Commandos radio network from your telephone. And you don't need an app, you don't need to download anything. Just call 832-999-1199 anytime, day or night, and there we will be. And now let's go over our guest list, and then we can go back and shooting holes on the through this idea of free stuff, all right?
Okay, that sounds fine. At 3:05, or 3:35, I have the honor of speaking with Mike Gonzalez. Mike's a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He's widely experienced international correspondent, commentator, and editor. He's reported from Asia, Europe, and Latin America, and he served in the George W. Bush administration, first at the Securities and Exchange Commission and then at the State Department. He's written a book, A Race for the Future, How Conservatives Can Break the Liberal Monopoly on Hispanic Americans. That was published in September, and he's coming on Conservative Commandos radio show today to talk about a topic. Finally, Europe is waking up to the dangers of multiculturalism, and it's an article that he's written in the Daily Signal.
All right.
And then at the next segment, which is the 405 segment, I'm getting the opportunity to speak with Megan Kennan. She is the campus coordinator at Red Alert Politics, and she's originally from the great state of Illinois. She's graduated from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign in 2013 with a degree in journalism. And she's coming on the show today to talk about Iowa and how the youth vote actually fueled the upsets for Sanders, Cruz, and Rubio. And she's going to explain to us why. Now, I do think the youth vote is very important in this presidential election, and we're seeing that already within the Republican and the Democrat primaries, Rick.
Yeah, actually, I think it's too important. I think they should move the voting age to 25. Because, no personal offense to anybody who's 18. But I can remember a specific incident when I was 19. I was 19 years old. And I literally thought I knew everything there was to know. And now I know I literally have no idea about anything. But when you're 19, you think you do. Well, and at 4:35, our good friend Bob Dorigo Jones, for a senior fellow for the Center for America, will be joining us. Bob is the author of the best-selling book, Remove Child Before Folding, the 101 stupidest, silliest, and wackiest warning labels ever. He's the host of a new radio internet commentary, Let's Be Fair, through which he shares important stories about the impact of crazy lawsuits. And Bob is going to be joining us today to talk about some of those Let's Be Fair commentaries. So we got a great show lined up.
Yeah, and I know that Bob Dorigo Jones segment is going to be very entertaining. He gives me a good laugh if he's talking about these things, and it's so true.
Well, you laugh, but you laugh because it's a shame and pity. That's why you laugh.
Yeah.
So, Anna, what else is on your radar screen today?
Well, I think we do have to talk a little bit about the wide berth that still exists within the Republican Party of candidates. And I know that everyone who supports their candidate has the dream of that candidate being the winner of the primary on the Republican side. And I am completely in favor of primaries as a way of deciding who the nominee should be.
I am
because
too.
It's the only way that people have a voice. I do not think it should be decided by political parties.
Nope.
They're nothing but private organizations, private clubs that choose to endorse a candidate.
Yep.
They are not all-knowing or all-powerful, and they're often as out of touch with the people they're supposed to be serving as government can be. So,
were you referring to
primaries?
Yeah, Anna, were you referring to Karl Rove when you were saying all that? Were you thinking?
I do think Karl Rove does think he knows an awful lot.
Yeah.
He thinks he knows an awful lot.
Yeah, and the 2012 elections showed how little he actually does know.
Right.
Maybe he's 19 years old. He thinks he knows it all.
Well, I just don't believe in elitism when it comes to politics and government. I believe it's the Main Street, grassroots, average, everyday, red-blooded, hard-working American that knows what's best as far as government is concerned at all three levels. Actually, in some cases, 4 levels, in all levels of government. And I think it's important for us to remember that the primary, while it is invigorating, it can also become a detriment to getting your nominee's name out there. If you have candidates who have, very little chance of winning, who hold on too long. And you do have to remember also in the primary situation that we all need to coalesce once again behind the Republican nominee, whether he's your guy or not. We didn't do that last time around, and we got stuck with another 4 years of Barack Obama. I do not blame the Democrats for that. I blame the Republicans and the conservatives for not working together. And that disjointedness continued under John Boehner's leadership, even up until the very recent past when we've had Paul Ryan take over.
Yeah,
so, I don't want to see any Republicans speaking against other Republicans, conservative or moderate. Ronald Reagan had an 11th commandment for a reason. We need to win general elections, and we can't do it unless we work together.
But, Anna, One of the things that I think is good about the primaries is it's actually helping people to vet their candidates.
Oh, that's true.
How do you vet candidates? How do you totally vet candidates unless you point out the weaknesses of some of them? For instance, and I'll give you for instance, I have a thing that I post up on Facebook. Take the pledge. I'm asking people to take the pledge. Never vote for any candidate that supports amnesty. Take the pledge never to vote for any candidate that supports amnesty. Because in my opinion, that is a litmus test for conservatism. Okay? So am I wrong when I say that? Because, Marco Rubio, he was a member of the Gang of Eight.
Well, listen, I don't think that addressing the immigration issue necessitates an amnesty. We have laws on the books which need to be enforced.
Amen.
There are eligibility requirements for legalization included in those laws that are on the books. Far right-wing conservatives and their rhetoric would depart from the law on the books as it exists today.
Well, the law on the books...
Where the policy differences are. And I'm okay with people having differences in the policy.
Right.
I'm not okay with people saying, ignore the law in the opposite direction.
Well, that's what's happening now. The law is being ignored. I would like the law just to be enforced.
Right.
You enforce the laws we have right now, and I would be happy. I would be happy. Now, enforcing, let me give you this little caveat. In my opinion, enforcing the law means finding the people who have broken that law and deal with them.
Dealing with them I can handle because you know my other day job, right? Yes. I'm an immigration lawyer, right?
That's why I love to get in these conversations with you about it.
I could do more than a segment. Anyway, what I want to get to quickly, because I see the time, is that you need to know what's in the law in order to speak correctly, rhetorically even, on it. And when you're promoting policy, it's okay to depart from that law when you're promoting policy.
But in promoting policy, are you also going against Reagan's 11th commandment?
You're not going against Reagan's 11th commandment when you talk about policy. Mm-hmm. You talk about law enforcement. When you begin to speak about someone in an ad hominem manner, if you start to talk about their character, if you start to beat them up by way of saying, you have this skeleton in your closet, I think that's stuff that Republicans should do so inside the confines of their private discussions, but out on the public stage.
Well,
it's policy.
Don't what people, the skeletons in people's closets, per se, doesn't that reflect on their kind of character? For instance, and again, I'm going to bring this locally, okay, this $100 million bond issue that the local Board of Education is trying to pass.
That's fair game.
Now, let's talk about the members of the Board of Education. I know one of the people who was on the Board of Education formerly has had financial problems. From what I was told, I don't know about this for sure, but two people that are sitting on the Board of Education now have had bankruptcies. So here are people that cannot take care of their own financial matters, are wanting the community to trust them with $100 million on top of the $73 million they get already. So what I'm getting at is those skeletons in people's closets, I think they should matter.
Okay, but you got to understand with regard to bankruptcy, we're on the Republican side are faced with a front runner for the presidency who has declared bankruptcy more than once.
Well, I think that should matter.
It's the way of doing business in his mind.
When you're talking about Donald Trump, I was thinking about this on the way to this show today because I was listening to America Off the Rails with Rick Robinson, and we're talking about Donald Trump and his bankruptcies. I knew a man who had a small business, okay? And in his business, he would do business with the casinos, Now, when you work for the casinos, when you're a contractor for the casinos, you know they're going to pay you 90 days late to begin with. But one of the casinos this individual dealt with was the Trump Casino in Atlantic City. And he was so screwed over by the Trump Casino and Donald Trump with his bankruptcies, this poor man lost his business. This man lost his business.
I don't believe in bankruptcy, Rick.
Well, I'm just saying, so I think those skeletons that are in people's closets, those flaws in their characters, I think all that should matter.
What you have to remember is that you have a limited number of people on the stage who have enough of an organization and enough financing to actually get to the nomination. Those people who are on the stage on the Republican side, one of the top three most likely, I don't know, maybe something different will happen in New Hampshire and South Carolina, but I doubt it. One of those top three is going to be our nominee. So beating the living daylights out of them on the public stage does not benefit us for the long haul. They should be competitive with each other as to who's the best Republican nominee.
Right.
They should leave to the Democrats their opposition research. They shouldn't be doing it for them.
I agree. Hey, Anna, you know what? We just talked our way right through their break time. And we have a guest scheduled to come on. And, you know, I hate to... I hate to put our guests out. So what we're going to do is we're going to forego that break time, Anna, if it's okay with you. And
it's fine with me, and I'm
bring our guests on.
Carried away.
So what we need to do, Anna, is we need to put you on hold real quickly so we can bring you and our first guest in. And Anna, we do have our first guest with us. Will you be so kind as to introduce them?
I'll be happy to do so.
Take it away.
Okay. Mike Gonzalez is a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He's widely experienced as an international correspondent, commentator, and editor who has reported from Asia, Europe, and Latin America. He served in the George W. Bush administration, first at the Securities and Exchange Commission, and then at the State Department. He's written a book, A Race for the Future, How Conservatives Can Break the Liberal Monopoly on Hispanic Americans. And that book was published in September. Mike Gonzalez, welcome to Conservative Radio Show.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me. Hello to you both.
I'm glad you were able to join us today on the show, and I love the topic that you're going to be discussing. Finally, Europe is waking up to the dangers of multiculturalism. It's an article you've written in the Daily Signal. Talk to us about it.
Well, you know, for a while I've been noticing... especially David Cameron, the Prime Minister of the UK, but now also Angela Merkel and François Hollande, the President of Germany. Hollande's the President of Germany, and Merkel is the Chancellor of Germany. And what they're beginning to say is they have realized that the enforcement of multiculturalism by their government has been a huge disaster. David Cameron himself calls it state multiculturalism, which I think is very well put, a very good term, because it is a state approach, and what it does, what he has said is that we do not, when immigrants come in, or even people born here, or we do not describe what our values are. They do not describe what American values are. In their cases, British, French, or German values. They're not confident about their values. They're not confident about their value system, or their institutions, or their tenets. And they say, "Well, you don't really have to come in and be part of our nation." And now they're discovering that's a mistake, and they're discovering that the truly inclusive thing, if you really want to be inclusive, what you do is you say, in our case, these are our American values. This is what America stands for. This is our political culture. You need to be part of one conversation, and that is how representative government survives and how sovereignty survives. So they're trying to change that.
Yeah, so tell me, what difficulties have they encountered with this idea of multiculturalism? Has there been such disjointedness that government policy has been effective?
Yeah, I mean, what you cease to have increasingly a unified country, a unified nation. You have a balkanized a nation of groups that think of themselves primarily as groups, and these groups have different, separate laws and separate benefits, and are accorded separate, separate benefits. And we've tried that before. We did not find that it worked. Thank God, and we did away with that. Equal but separate, it didn't work, and we very fortunately did away with that. We should not go back to treating members of different groups differently. We should go back to the individual rights, and we're all Americans, or in their case, German, French, or British. And I think that that debate is underway over there, and I think it's a very good debate.
Well, let's talk about London. Prime Minister Cameron wrote in the Times of London, and I'm getting this from your article, all too often because of what I would call, this is in Prime Minister Cameron's words, what I would call passive tolerance. People subscribe to the flawed idea of separate development, and that's what you've been just describing. And he says it's time to change the approach. Do you think maybe this has something to do with ISIS threats, terrorism, really? And are they attempting to identify these separatists, these ISIS terrorists, and deal with them differently than the multicultural citizens that they have had up until this time? Do you think terrorism is the catalyst?
Yeah, very much so. Although not the recent spate. In the case of Cameron, he's been saying this ever since he was the leader of the opposition. He had a very good speech about it in 2008 or 2007, I believe. She first brought out the term state multiculturalism. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think that terrorism has been a catalyst for saying, wait a second, what have we done to ourselves? What have we invited by saying, live and let live? You could, have the de minimis economic integration, but that don't have any cultural integration and don't have any patriotic assimilation. And I think patriotic assimilation is incredibly important. Patriotic assimilation is, people who have thought a lot about this, by the way. John Stuart Mill, a 19th century writer, was very good on this, and he was a philosopher, and he was a liberal, a classical liberal. And what he discovered after looking at this is that if you're going to have representative democracy, you need to have one conversation, one national conversation, you need to have a shared experience. And America did this really well for centuries. Even before America was a republic, when it was colonies, immigrants came in. German immigrants went into Pennsylvania, and the Scots-Irish went into, and they suffered discrimination. They suffered, they were not wanted in Boston, and they were not wanted in Philadelphia or Richmond, and they shoved off to Appalachia. But the government never thought of taking a hand in having to come in and say, okay, well, we're going to adjudicate your participation in society, and it's going to be representational. And that never happened. Every group proved itself better than the last one. And I think that was a very Lockean, a very good approach that produced, this country has been an ahistorical success in terms of A, freedom, and B, prosperity. And I think that approach was linked to that. And I think we have done ourselves a disfavor, and so have our friends in Western Europe, by abandoning that approach.
Hey, Mike and Anna, if I could jump in for a minute. I usually don't like to jump in conversations like this, Mike, but I have to at this point, because with the line from your article that Anna just read from, I wanted to know, and prior to that line, you also talk about how there are 230,000 Muslims living in Britain at this time who speak very little or no English. And my question to you is, when he says that it's time, when Cameron talks about it's time for a change in our approach, is it too late for a time? Or is that water all over the dam? Is it too late for a change in that approach?
Well, Rick, it's like the old joke. When is the best time to plant an elm tree in your backyard? The best time is 30 years ago.
Right.
The second best time is today.
Yeah. Gotcha.
If you get the analogy. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, yes, the best time to have done this would have been a long time ago, but it wasn't done.
Right.
So
And when you talk
the best time is today.
Mike, when you talk about assimilating into a society and a culture, my grandmother and grandfather came to America on my mother's side, came to America in 1911. And right away, they tried to assimilate into the culture. For instance, my grandmother's name was Kazimira. Her main name was Januszewski. So Kazimira Januszewski became Catherine Berlinger. People tried to assimilate into the American culture, into the American idea, because that's what they came here for, a piece of the American culture, the American idea. But am I wrong in thinking, Mike, that a lot of people coming here now are coming here because they want the American dream as far as the financial end and the security, but they want to bring their culture and their ways here and around their culture and live within their culture and ideas that they brought from where they came from?
Rick, I blame government for that. Now, when your grandmother came, by the way, let me make very clear, very, very briefly but succinctly what I mean by assimilation. I don't mean you forget your pride in who you are. I was born in Cuba.
Right.
Very proud of what my ancestors did in Cuba and Spain.
Right.
I still smoke cigars to commune with the souls of my ancestors. But I am American, and I think first and foremost of American national interest, and that is what it's about. Now, let me answer your question. Your grandparents or your great grandparents were met upon landing by a very, very rigorous assimilationist approach. All our political and cultural elites all pulled for assimilation. Even people that did not want to assimilate, and the Germans wanted to remain apart and speak German, and they had German papers and German churches, and the same with the Norwegians. But the narrative by our leaders, by America's leaders, from both sides, from President Wilson and President Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, and Louis Brandeis and everybody else, said no, there has to be assimilation. We're going to teach the fundamentals, and we're going to teach love of country, and because people want to come in and they want to continue to drink, to eat their food, drink their, whether they're used to drinking and speak their language. People come in for different reasons, but they were met with a very assimilationist program that was, expressly so.
Right. Hey, Mike, sorry to interrupt again, but we do have to take a 2-minute quick break. Could you hold through that break? Because
of course.
Ann and I want to pick this up on the other side with you. And you are listening to Conservative Commandos with Anna Little and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network at WNJC 1316 Philly and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Today's show is brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. And our guest this segment is Mike Gonzalez, Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, talking about, finally, Europe is waking up to the dangers of multiculturalism. Be right back.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Trader and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and ccrshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. At 1 p.m., log on to roarradio.net. And at 9 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. We are speaking this segment with Mike Gonzalez, Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation and author of the book A Race for the Future, How Conservatives Can Break the Liberal Monopoly on Hispanic Americans, which was published in September. And Mike has been talking to us about Europe and how they're waking up to the dangers of multiculturalism. Thanks for waiting through that break, Mike. We do appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for having me again.
Well, we're glad you're here because it is very important to discuss because we live in a politically correct society, and even the White House has cautioned us against discrimination against Islamic Americans who may want to practice their faith in public, and the fear that has been instilled in these Islamic Americans. The National Prayer Breakfast was being televised this morning, and I was watching it, and these were the remarks of our president. So I wonder how you think this might square, or perhaps it doesn't square, with what's going on in Europe today with regard to multiculturalism.
Well, I haven't had time to sit down and read either of the president's speeches, the one at the mosque yesterday or the one today. I will do so. I think the Constitution obviously guarantees the freedom of to practice religion. I'm all for that, and as anybody
First
should be.
Right.
And we already have laws that on the books that says that you cannot interfere with that. But to return to the subject of political correctness, I think political correctness is a very clever plot. I think political correctness is a tool of censorship. I think what it says
I agree.
This is now we're not going to debate this issue or that issue. I think what we just do is just ignore it, because just like the very same amendment that guarantees, and thank God for that, freedom of religion, also guarantees freedom of speech. It's the same amendment.
That's right.
People can say things I disagree with. And when I went to college, I didn't have any safe space. I went to Columbia for a graduate degree.
That was the next question I had. Where are we in academia today when speech is to be controlled on a college campus where free speech was given its heyday? Now it's being excluded from college campuses. If you want to speak freely, go home to your parents. Here, you can't say this, you can't say that. We need to make sure that only these things can be said in the public venue within the university. I think it's ridiculous. If you don't have the tolerance for that sort of thing, how do you ever expect to learn about each other and to broaden your horizons? It just
well, you know,
it's
what is the purpose? What is the purpose of academia? It is the pursuit, the discovery of truth, right? And how are we to discover truth unless we hold a Socratic dialogue? But they don't want a Socratic dialogue. Okay, the left does not want a Socratic dialogue. The left cannot exist without censorship.
Listen, the safe place idea, the idea that words can harm, the bullying idea, okay, I get the idea when it's raised to harassment, and we have laws on the books to deal with that. But barring harassment, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never harm me. That's how I was raised. You walk away from the person that speaks ill toward you. If he hits you, you take him to court. That's the way it works. And don't you ever throw the first punch. You finish a fight, you don't start one. You know, that's the way you were raised. I think it's the American way. So
we already have enough laws against. You cannot threaten people. You cannot use violence. These are good laws. We should implement the laws that we have.
That's right. So now we want to talk about women's rights, because we're back to Britain again, and Germany and France. They've brought in these refugees. They're allowing everybody to be multicultural. You don't have to assimilate. They're realizing the error in that. And one of the reasons is because women, even among the refugees, but also native women to these countries, treated badly by the refugees that are coming in, they're ending up with these appalling practices that, again, Prime Minister Cameron has spoken about. And you've also got Merkel from Germany, who was very pro-refugee coming into Germany. She's now seen the error of her ways. These women's rights under Sharia law, we've got to talk about that. Mike, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, I think Cameron has been very outspoken on that issue. And in fact, he wants to spend money. He wants to spend money to teach, particularly women of the Islamic faith, to teach them English so that they understand every day. So they are part, like John Stuart Mill said, they are part of the national conversation, of one conversation. No matter what their religion are. It doesn't matter whether the Church of England or Roman Catholic or Islamic or Jewish. It is about the fact that we have rights. We all have rights, which have nothing to do with our religion.
Human rights.
And so what Cameron is saying is, I want everybody to discover what their rights are, and I want everybody to be plugged in, and I want everybody to understand. And for that, he's being excoriated by the left.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think what we've got to do is we've got to determine what laws we've had. Well, look, America's different. Our people run the government here, right? It's not, I guess England's come close with their parliament. It's not quite the same thing, but it's close. I'm not sure about the others. I'd have to study their governments a little more closely. But here in America, at least, we already have laws on the books promulgated by the people through the representatives, where the customs of these multicultural folks who are coming in to become part of our society, where those customs are against our law, I don't think there's any question, but we have to enforce our laws, and they need to understand that our laws are different than the laws from of the country from which they came, and that we will not tolerate abuse of our law. And I think in the area of women's rights, forced marriages, forced female genital mutilation, these things would not occur. The stonings of women, honor killings of women, this cannot be tolerated in the United States of America because it's against our law. It's criminal to do these things here. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Those two practices were identified by Cameron in his article in the Times of London, particularly. And look, that's right. One of the things, by the way, you mentioned in your very kind introduction of me, I lived all over the world. One thing that really makes America exceptional is that we're really constitutionalists. You know, I mentioned I was born in Cuba. I came to this country. I left Cuba at the age of 12. And you come here and you begin to hear people say, that's unconstitutional. No, that's unconstitutional. No, you have to abide by the Constitution. Let me tell you, that is not rare. That is very few other countries. I don't know any other country that behaves like that. So we have a law. We're a constitutional republic. We're not. In fact, we're not a democracy. If a majority wants to violate the Constitution, they can't unless they amend the Constitution. So we're a constitutional republic, and we have to stay a constitutional republic. This has been a great ride for America. America has given its people fantastic freedom and has exported these freedoms abroad. You know, this is what we're talking about. This is a survival of a model that is a very good model.
Well, I agree with you 100%. I'm troubled by the rhetoric that I'm hearing. I think it's easily solved. We follow our laws. We have laws. We're a nation of laws. You're now here. You're under our laws. You're in our jurisdiction. I think it's very clear, but I hope that political correctness does not keep us from that. You know, time flies when we're having fun, Mike, so I've got to wrap you up. I cannot believe how quickly the time has flown. Can you please remind our listeners where they can follow you, and especially talk to them about where they can get your book?
They can get my book, Race for the Future, on Amazon. They can get it at Barnes & Noble. They can follow me on Twitter at Gundisalvus, Gundisalvus, which is Gonzalez in Latin. They can come to heritage.org to see our work. I just did a special report on assimilation, a 9,000-word report, which I published last month, which details the way we have done things for centuries and the way we have done things for the last 3 decades. And I think you can tell from the conversation we've had what I prefer. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. Mike Gonzalez, Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, author of the book, A Race for the Future, How Conservatives Can Break the Liberal Monopoly on Hispanic Americans. Thanks so much for spending this time with us. We hope to have you come back again soon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks to the two of you. Thank you.
Okay. Listeners, we have got to go to a break now. I can't believe how quickly that time flew during that segment. We are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all .com. I'm Anna Little. Our producer, Rick Trader, is in the studios, and we'll both be right back with you on Conservative Commandos after this break.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Trader and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, CCRS Network and CCRShow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to LeadingEdgeRadioNetwork.com. 1 p.m., WarRadio.net. And 9 p.m., HighPlainsDailyNews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Our next guest is with us, and the honor of the introduction is mine. Megan Keenan is the campus coordinator at Red Alert Politics. She's originally from the great state of Illinois and graduated from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, in 2013 with a degree in journalism. Megan Keenan joins us today to talk about the great state of Iowa and how the youth vote fueled upsets for Sanders, Cruz, and Rubio in the caucuses there just last week. Megan, welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm so glad you took time out to talk to us today about the youth vote because, you know, I remember that when Barack Obama was running, he really did monopolize on that youth vote in order to get out the vote, and he used social media, and through those two vehicles, he really did overtake Hillary Clinton, and that was a big surprise to everybody. So I'm wondering, are we seeing that dynamic inside the Republican Party and even the Democrat Party on the results of the Iowa caucuses just last week?
Yeah, I think we definitely are seeing something similar to that, and 2008 was a record-breaking year in terms of how many young voters showed up to the Iowa caucuses, and this year was not as high, but it was historically a very high amount of young voters, and it did actually break a record for voters who showed up, young voters on the Republican side. And there was about twice as many young Republicans that showed up this year than there were in 2008. So that was huge, and I think that played a big role in taking some of the support away from Donald Trump and redirecting it towards Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio.
Do you think maybe it's this image of being acceptable to the establishment that may have hurt Hillary Clinton on the Democrat side and even Donald Trump on the Republican side? I mean, I know he's a grassroots individual, he's a self-made man and an independent, but then by the same token, he seems to be acceptable by moderate Republicans and therefore an establishment type candidate. So I'm wondering if the youth are rebelling against that whole idea of establishment endorsed candidates. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's something to that, definitely, that anti-establishment candidates are just more popular this year among youth and in the general electorate. But I think for the youth in particular, I think one of the big issues, maybe even bigger than anti-establishment, is trust. And that's been shown in several youth polls that have been done in recent months, that young voters don't find Hillary Clinton trustworthy, and they also don't find Donald Trump very trustworthy, and that's a big issue for them, as sort of like integrity and values and trust.
Well, I think that's awfully good news, because if the youth are focused on integrity, values, and trust, well, then there's hope for this nation. And, I do think that the youth vote is terribly important because, those young voters, they're the ones that are trying to enter the workplace right now. And I don't know what they're thinking about this economy. I know that the 3 young adults I have in my family are not feeling confident about their ability to pay off educational debt, and therefore changing their plans with regard to their education and how they're going to fund it. And I know there are some of their peers who have chosen not to go to college at all. Do you think that was a factor in this election process last week at the Iowa caucuses?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest reasons that Bernie Sanders has the youth support that he has, is because he's so aggressive and just so passionate about his message of how college should be free for everyone. And I think that's also why Marco Rubio has been gaining some momentum with young voters, because, as far as I know, Trump hasn't talked about any student issues or how to refinance student loan debt or anything like that. But Marco Rubio is someone who does have a strategy on that front. He talks about student issues. He talks about his own struggle with student loan debt. He is more relatable to young voters on that issue, and I think that's paying off for him right now.
Let's talk solutions for a minute. These young folks, their biggest complaint is they can't get that college education, or if they do get it, they're saddled with this debt that they can't seem to pay off. And it sure seems that it comes down to, after they get the education, they don't have confidence that they can find a job. Is anybody talking about job creation as a solution to the educational debt situation, and that the future of these young people may depend on that American dream, which requires having a job, right?
Right, yeah, that's a great question. And I guess it's a complicated answer. Rubio is, one of the few, I would say, GOP candidates that does talk about the student debt issue. And his solution is more to have companies finance education and have sort of the companies contribute to the students' education, which is an interesting concept and more of like a free market approach. But I haven't heard any other sort of similar solutions, I guess, from the other candidates.
I've been hearing a lot about national security, which I think goes to every voter. I've been hearing a lot about, I guess, religious freedom. And in fairness, this was Iowa they were talking to, which is a big evangelical state on both sides of the aisle. But I didn't hear a lot on the economics of things. It was more about use of the military, national security, and then religious freedom, both abroad and here, and what our policies ought to be with our countries internationally. That's what I'm hearing more of. And so I think you're right. I think these youth are responding with, okay, that's all well and good, but my world is about my college education and my job prospects, which aren't looking too good right now. And I'm wondering on the Democratic side if Sanders' giveaway programs didn't give him that 50% mark because Hillary Clinton just frankly isn't addressing that at all. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I know, obviously, yes, all of the Republican candidates have been talking a lot about national security, and that sort of dominated the conversation for the past several months and just sort of become the main issue. And I think from watching the two sides debate, the Democrats don't talk nearly as much as the Republicans about national security. They talk about sort of a wider range of issues and issues that more young voters are focused on, like climate change and student debt and racial inequality and same-sex marriage, all these things. And so that, I think, is definitely part of why young voters continue to swing Democrat. And Hillary Clinton, I suppose, is a little bit more attuned to national security issues than Bernie Sanders is. And I don't know if that is a advantage or a disadvantage for her in terms of attracting youth support.
Yeah, I think the youth are not afraid of a draft these days. They're a little out of touch with what's going on in the world. If you get them educated on an issue within narrow confines, they'll tell you what their moral judgment is on it, but I'm not sure it's their reality. I think the reality is I'm out of high school, I'm trying to get through college if I'm not already done with it, and I need a job. And I think, it is about jobs for these kids, and I think we're missing the boat on the Republican side, not talking about it more, because I think if we did, we might actually be able to take some of those folks that are leaning toward the free giveaways and help them to realize, look, you're smart, somebody's got to pay for that, and, it's not reality. So how about we get you a job so you've got the money to pay that stuff off, right?
Yeah, and there's no college student out there who hears Bernie Sanders' plan and doesn't, think for a second, like, hey, that's a great idea. Why shouldn't college be free? And obviously when you sort of think about it, and you can start to poke a lot of holes in that concept, but it's just, I think it's sort of a war of words in that way. And
it's like the kid that runs for student council and says, everybody in school can have a free lunch if you elect me. That's Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, exactly.
Megan, I am loving talking to you, but I got to watch my time. We've got to take a quick 2-minute break. So can you hold on for those 2 minutes while we take that station break, and then we'll come back with you right afterward?
Sure thing.
Okay, thank you so much. Listeners, we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all .coms. I'm Anna Little. Rick Trader, our producer, is in the studio, and we're speaking this segment with Megan Keenan. She's the campus coordinator at Red Alert Politics, and she's talking to us about Iowa and the youth vote and how it fueled upsets for Sanders, Cruz, and Rubio. We'll be right back with you after this break.
They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Anna Little and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, please check out our websites, ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., please log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com at 1 p.m., roarradio.net, or at 9 p.m. Eastern Time in the evening, highplainsdailynews.com. Or you can hear our show any time of the day or night, along with all the other great conservative programming here at WNJC 1360 by calling 832-999-1199. Our guest this segment is Megan Kinn. She is the campus coordinator at Red Alert Politics. Megan, thanks for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Sure, not a problem.
Well, Megan, I got to be honest with you. I got to be the old curmudgeon here. You know, I'm older than dirt. I was around when the very first rock was split in two. But as far back, and I was telling Anna a little bit about this earlier, when I was 8 years old, I thought I had this all figured out. And I wanted a pony really, really bad. Mom and Dad said they couldn't afford a pony. But I went with my dad one day, and he bought some lumber, and he used something called a check. A check. He didn't pay people money. He used a check to pay for this lumber, and I saw this. And I said, Daddy, buy me a pony. He says, we can't afford it. We don't have the money. I said, just write him a check. See, I had all this figured out. And Megan, I'm thinking that's what's happening with a lot of young people today, because they're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. They've never been out in the world. They've never had to balance a checkbook. They've never had to pay a credit card statement at the end of the month. They're also being taught by college professors who have no idea the outside world. They've been supported by governments all their life. They go home, they have these young parents who live on credit card and credit card debt. Give an example, Megan. Sorry to go on this diatribe, but the other day my wife and I went into a store that was having a fantastic sale. And the line literally to check out was about a half an hour long. I mean, this line wrapped around the store. After waiting in line for about 15 minutes, one of the people come up and said, if you're paying with cash, only paying with cash, go to register 1, but only if you're paying with cash. Two people out of this line. I swear there were 30, 40 people in this line. Only 2 people went to cash register number 1. So what I'm getting at, Megan, with this, and I want your comment. Call me crazy, call me an old curmudgeon. I've been called worse. Be nice to me. But am I right in thinking that young people really don't have an idea that these things need to be paid for? They all want the pony?
Yes, I do agree with that statement. And I, myself, am only about three and a half years out of college.
Which makes you about 1/3 as old as I am.
But I think, yeah, even my personal views have changed a lot since I was in school, just because you don't really have an idea of sort of living on your own and taking care of yourself and all of these things. And it's hard to know when you're sort of in a bubble or you grew up in, middle-class family and as I did and never really wanted for anything. But yeah, it's hard to have an idea, I guess, of how to balance a budget and that not everything just magically comes from the government to you.
Well, which brings me, in my opinion, to something that's going to be very, very controversial, and that's the voting age. Because so many young people have such a wrong idea of how life and finances work, why are we entrusting them with the vote?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I think you do see a lot of the same trends year after year in politics with the type of candidates that young voters support.
Yeah, like Bernie Sanders. You and Anna were talking about Bernie Sanders. And we had a guest here on the Conservative Commandos radio show the other day that did a little math and figured out if you give everything away that Bernie Sanders wants to give away free, that free stuff is going to cost you $13.6 billion. Billion with a B over the next 10 years. And yet each and every day, we have young people falling all over themselves to support Bernie Sanders. Do they not understand they are going to have to pay back that $13.6 billion for all this free stuff?
Right, exactly. And that's how I see it as well. We're going to have to pay more in taxes when your free college is paid for. So, yeah, it doesn't really make sense.
Anna, let me bring you into this conversation. Anna, do you think I'm being an old curmudgeon when I say the voting age is wrong? It should be raised because these people do not understand the reality of life?
Okay, here's...
you have young children, children in their teens and early 20s.
Well, the youngest is now approaching 19, so we're getting into the 20s with all three of them.
I've known you a long time, Anna.
Yeah, I know.
When your youngest is approaching the 20s.
Yeah. So, but here's where I think it becomes difficult with regard to the voting age. If you're going to draft people or allow them to enter the military at age 18, you've got to give them a vote. So,
well, maybe we should just give military people the vote. Give the military the vote. I have no problem with that. Okay?
They're going to be sent in harm's way. Well,
that's right, so let them vote.
Who their commander-in-chief is going to be. Look, I think that the difficulty we have is twofold. One, it's maturity. I mean, it's out there in science that the brain isn't fully developed until you're 25. And I know that young people are offended by that, but it may just well be the fact, okay? Because there are
Sorry about that, Megan, but this is just Hannah's opinion.
I'm a couple months away, yeah.
Right. It does not mean that you can't make decisions for yourself, but it does mean that, you may be affected in a larger way than some of us older folks are by emotions and whatnot, which is, what leads people to lean that liberal, heart-bleeding side of things. But there's another thing another factor that's at place here is there's not a lot of nurturing going on today at home. There's a lot of folks that are scrambling to make ends meet. This is irrespective of politics. The economy is tough on families right now. And so kids don't feel as capable as we did when we were growing up, Rick. And Megan, I'll bet that you feel sometimes like it's a little bigger than you are. And especially when you know that the national debt is in double digits and you can't even get your head around how you're going to get a job, let alone how you're going to pay that off. And you didn't do it. It's getting, put on your back. And it's kind of like, my parents were irresponsible, so now I got to pay the bill, which is absolutely correct. That's exactly what's happening to you. So I think that that's the part that we can address. The biological part, the physical part, the scientific part, it is what it is. And that's where the voting age and all of that stuff comes in. I would rather address this from a practical standpoint, which is, I feel your pain. Let's solve the problem. And I really think an economic argument does it. Look, these kids are always going to be bleeding hearts. I'm a bleeding heart, and I'm 48 years old. I love people. I hate to see them in pain. I want to help folks.
There's such a thing called tough love, though. And you know that as being a parent. There's such a thing as tough love.
Look, you don't want to hold somebody down by giving them a handout. Well, we got to teach these kids that's what it's about. And the first way you do it is show them how capable they really are. And, I gave my kids that opportunity by telling them, if you're not involved in after-school activities in high school, you've got a job. I'm sorry, but you're not sitting around my house if I'm working my Tootsie Roll. I'm working, you're working. That's the way it is.
Hey, Megan, Megan, I'm sorry.
So close.
And I'm sorry to do this. We're coming up the end of our segment, but I have another quick question for Megan. Megan, we only have about a minute. Do these people understand the difference between them paying off their student loans and them paying off $13.6 trillion in debt?
Yeah, that's a good question, Rick.
What say you, Megan?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess the student debt obviously is more personal, and so it affects you directly. You are the one who has to pay it. So
yeah, one way or another, they got to pay it.
Yeah.
Hey, Megan Kean, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. Please tell our audience where they can follow your work.
Sure. Yeah, our website is redalertpolitics.com.
Megan Kean, again, we enjoyed our time with you. Hope you come back.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. It was great to be here with you.
Take care. God bless. You are listening to Conservative Commandos with Anna Little and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network at WNJC 1360 in Philly and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM/FM 24/7. Don't go away. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with our friend Bob DeRigo Jones about Let's Be Fair. Hey, let's be fair to the taxpayer. How about that? Be right back.
They say I'm nasty, but
You've heard Paul Deltz playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20% 30-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired as I am about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show, and if you'd like to hear rebroadcast of our programs, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern, log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. At 1 p.m., roarradio.net, or at 9 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. Or you can hear our show any time of the day by calling 832-999-1199. And also the rest of the shows here as part of the Conservative Commandos radio network here at WNJC 1360. Our next guest is our very good friend, Bob Dorigo Jones. He serves as a senior fellow for the Center for America. He's the author of the best-selling book, Remove Child Before Folding, the 101 Stupidest, Silliest, and Wackiest Warning Labels Ever. He's the host of a national radio internet commentary, Let's Be Fair, we love playing here on Conservative Commandos, through which he shares important stories about the impact of the crazy lawsuits and litigation-happy culture on our communities and our families. Bob, welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show, buddy.
Hi, Rick. Thanks for having me on your show again.
Oh, Bob, you know, this is one of my favorite segments of the month.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Well,
I don't let you down this time.
Oh, you never do. You never do. By the way, are you going to be at CPAC this year?
I am. How about you?
Oh, yeah. We're going to be there on Radio Row, so make sure you come by and say hello.
Definitely.
Hey, Bob, before we get started on our Let's Be Fair commentaries, tell us a little bit about Center for America and your work there.
Right. The Center for America is an issue advocacy group that's designed to remove barriers to the free enterprise system. That can take many forms, whether it's barriers to the economy by having a lack of skilled labor and vocational trades, or the crushing weight of litigation on job providers, too. And I focus on the latter, and that's why we do our commentary each week to get people talking about how much we all pay, even if we're never directly sued, by living in the most lawsuit-happy society on earth.
Well, Bob, and you know, I've talked about this a couple times in the past. You know, I love to peruse around sporting goods stores and remember when I could use some of this stuff. And it always cracks me up when I go by a bat rack, you know, where they sell the bats. It's pretty hard to find a wooden bat anymore, but when I was a kid, I used to like to use the Jackie Robinson model. I don't know, it had a fat handle and it just felt good in my hands. It was also used by Carl Yastrzemski. But, Kenny, you know, these bats are like $50, $60, $70 today.
Well, yes. It's funny. I used to use a Carl Yastrzemski bat, too.
Is that right?
We're
wow.
Ourselves, right. And, you know, it's interesting. When I first got involved in this whole idea of tort reform and eliminating frivolous lawsuits from American culture, as big of a mountain as that is to climb, one of the very first people I spoke with was the president of Little League of Baseball of America. And he had written a letter that was published, I can't remember, either in the New York Times or Washington Post, about how the Little League had to spend more money on its liability insurance to protect itself from frivolous lawsuits than it did on bats, balls, and gloves combined. This was a really interesting guy. He had invented the double ear flap helmet that almost all kids today use.
Right. A lot of major leaguers are also using them too.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to look at this again. He may have either developed or had a hand in developing the aluminum bat. One of the reasons he did that
is... Well, now I don't like the guy.
Well,
because in my impression, if it's not wood, it's not a bat.
Well, right. That's why Major League sticks with wood, and hopefully they always will.
Yes.
But the thing is, for little leagues, they were losing bats, they were breaking bats, and it was becoming very expensive for them. So that's why they came up with this aluminum bat idea.
I hate that ping. Hey, Bob, let's get into the first Let's Be Fair, and I can identify with this, and it's about let's play it, and then we'll come back and talk about it, all right?
Okay, good.
This is Bob Dorigo Jones, Let's Be Fair.
I'm Bob Dorigo Jones, and this is Let's Be Fair. Ask any child what the best part of their school day is, and they'll likely tell you it's recess. That's true whether a child goes to a traditional school or is homeschooled. But now a lawsuit filed against a husband and wife who homeschool their children is taking all the fun out of recess for their kids. Andrew and Kelly Counts began homeschooling their children in Plano, Texas in 2014. With the permission of the city and their neighborhood association, they put a playhouse and swing set in their backyard for the kids to enjoy during study breaks. Unfortunately, they soon found out that their neighbors weren't happy with the sound of kids playing. First, the neighbors began playing vulgar and offensive music when the kids used their playhouse. Then, the neighbors sued them for upsetting what they called their tranquil quality of life. Let's be fair, it sounds like a certain set of neighbors need a lesson in how to settle disputes like adults. If that doesn't work, maybe the judge can give them a timeout. Learn more. Visit our website at centerforamericatv.org.
All right, so here you got these neighbors that sued their neighbors because their children, and from what the commentary was, Bob, it sounded like these were young children. If they're playing on swings.
Yes. Yeah, it's like, to steal a line from the old Animal House movie, it's a new low. It's one of those things that okay, let's say the neighbors can't talk to their other neighbors. Well, get the neighborhood association involved, go to mediation. I mean, the last thing you want to do is wind up in court on something crazy like this. After most of my commentaries, I do a little more background that we publish on a news website called epictimes.com. And this particular one had more shares on Facebook than anyone I've ever written. Mm-hmm. I think it really touches a nerve. Not only is it a ridiculous thing that neighbors would be sued over something like this, but it's also a big issue for homeschoolers who see this as a potential problem for them, because the kids who do stay home and are homeschooled are obviously going to want to play outside every once in a while. And if you're going to have a thin-skinned neighbor that's going to sue you, that could be a real problem.
Yeah. Bob, I have my wife's cousin. She had two sons who, like kids do, started a rock band in their basement. Not in their garage, but their basement. In their basement, Bob. And as rock bands do, they play music. Anyway, they had problems with their neighbors and were dragged into court several times because of their kids playing rock music in their basements. So this stuff does happen. Hey, Bob, let's get this break out of the way, and we'll come back and we'll do some more Let's Be Fair, okay?
Very good.
All right, you are listening to Conservative Commando's radio show, and we're coming to you from the studios at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM/FM 24/7, a whole bunch of others. Our guest this segment is Bob Dorigo Jones, Senior Fellow for the Center for America, and we're talking about Let's Be Fair, crazy, wacky, and ridiculous lawsuits. Be right back.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm messy, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to Conservative Commandos, and for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. I'm going to forgo the rest because I want to get our next guest in. Bob DeRico Jones, Senior Fellow for Center for America. Thanks for holding through the break.
My pleasure.
Hey, Bob, during our little break, you and I talked for a short period of time off the air that coming up is Super Bowl Sunday. And you mentioned that you had a Peyton Manning story.
I do. I just dug this out in the time between now and when we went on our last break there. This was in 2011, when Peyton Manning actually had to sit out a season. And I wonder if anybody remembers this, but he had a neck problem, and he needed treatment for his neck. Well, I don't know if a lot of people know this, and this is going to be interesting. I should put this on Twitter after we talk here. He had to go over to England. Where was it? He had to fly to Europe for the special treatment that he wanted, and he couldn't get it in the United States. And probably the primary reason he couldn't get this experimental treatment in the United States, which wound up evidently being very successful. He's had quite a run since he
sure has.
Is that even if you are willing to sign a waiver saying that you will waive all your rights to sue if the treatment doesn't go as planned, you can't do that in the United States.
Wow.
So over the years, we've seen a lot of people having to fly to Europe, to Asia, to Israel to get treatments. I've talked to parents of they have kids that they've had to leave at their darkest hours when they were dying of cancer because they couldn't get the treatment that they wanted here. And I've testified in legislatures saying that you need to be able to give people this right to sign a waiver to let them get the health care that they want, the treatment that they're willing to risk, because to tear them away from their families during these difficult times is really just inhumane.
I agree with that. And just think, since that 1 year he sat out and got this treatment, he's played 4 years. This is the second Super Bowl he's been in since that treatment.
Just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think it's he's a tremendous athlete and quite a competitor. So it'll be a fun game to watch this Sunday.
It seems to be a nice guy too.
Yeah.
Hey Bob, let me put you on hold because I want to play this next Let's Be Fair.
I'm Bob DeRico Jones, and this is Let's Be Fair. A sheriff's deputy in the state of Washington who interrupted a bank robber in the middle of an armed robbery is now being sued by the criminal. Todd Kirkpatrick was a serial bank robber, and as he was fleeing the scene of his latest crime, he pointed his gun at Deputy Dan Scott. The deputy responded by firing 2 shots that hit the man. Kirkpatrick survived and was eventually convicted of 4 bank robberies. Today, he's serving a 17-year prison sentence, but that hasn't stopped him from filing a lawsuit against Scott. He claims his medical bills should now be paid by the deputy. Let's be fair. It's tough being a law enforcement officer these days. Not only do they have to put their lives on the line every day, sometimes waging battle with armed criminals, they often have to defend themselves from lawsuits when the criminals don't like the way things have turned out. By the way, Deputy Scott was later named Law Enforcement Officer of the Year by the Washington Council of Police and Sheriffs. Learn more. Visit our website at centerforamericatv.org.
Oh my gosh, this stories like this, Bob, just fry my you-know-what. I mean, here you got a guy pointing a gun at a deputy. What is the deputy supposed to do? Wait for this guy to shoot? You know, I think this deputy, in my opinion, made one mistake. He didn't kill this jerk.
That's right.
He should have killed him. But then for this perp to be able to sue this officer, Bob, we need laws protecting our officers. And also, we need laws that say, look, if something happens while you're committing a crime, you lose your rights. You lose your right to sue. I don't know. I'm a strict constitutionalist.
It's not out of the realm of possibility to do something like that. Many states across the country passed Good Samaritan laws to protect doctors who arrive at the scene of an accident and provide health, life-saving medical attention to somebody. And if it later turns out the person dies, they used to sometimes get sued. That doesn't happen in most places anymore. And you could do something similar for law enforcement who really are out there every day putting their lives on the line. And it is ridiculous that somebody would get sued. A guy points his gun at somebody. Now, mind you, this isn't a cop that has a record of violence and questionable responses to violence. This is somebody who was named for the entire state of Washington the Law Enforcement Officer of the Year.
Unbelievable. Also, Bob, his medical bills, I don't think he has to worry about getting calls from a collection service for the next 17 years. Weren't those medical bills paid for by the county and state who had to take care of this guy after he was shot?
More than likely, yes.
So what's his beef?
Yeah, that's a good point. Just trying to use the court system as a sort of a lottery. They're hoping to get the little award money. You see all these ads on TV egging people on. He probably watched those ads when he wasn't out robbing banks and thought, well, this is my chance.
Yeah. All right, Bob, I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to do our next Let's Be Fair.
I'm Bob DeRigo Jones, and this is Let's Be Fair. A monkey and animal rights organization and a primatologist walk into a federal court to sue for infringement of the monkey's claimed copyright. Sounds like a joke, right? But it's actually a line from a real court document filed by a lawyer for a photographer who was sued last year by the group People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. To make a long story short, a monkey in Indonesia took a picture of himself using a camera that a nature photographer had left unattended. It was hilarious, and the monkey's selfie went viral. Unfortunately, that's when the real monkey business started, and PETA sued the photographer. It claimed that the monkey, not him, should get any money generated by the photo. Let's be fair. I know our legal system sometimes seems like it's gone bananas, but I'm happy to say that a federal judge has just issued a tentative ruling upholding common sense. He says that a monkey can't own a copyright. PETA, however, pledges to keep fighting. Learn more. Visit our website at centerforamericatv.org.
Well, it's a good thing this went into the court of a judge with some common sense. But I think it is the Attorney General of the state of New York now wants to give constitutional rights to animals. Are you familiar with that one, Bob?
I heard a little bit about it. I don't know a lot about it. This was an interesting case because the fellow, I talked to the photographer. Have you seen the picture?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you have to go on my blog. It's bobderigojones.com, and he gave me permission to use this on my blog. It's just one of the funniest pictures you'll ever see. And he's a British resident, citizen. So PETA has offices in Britain. They could have sued him in England, but they'd never think about that because it would be thrown out, and they'd have to pay the legal bills when they lost. In America, they don't have to do that, and that's why we see ridiculous lawsuits like this.
Unbelievable. Hey, Bob, let's get this next one in real quick, okay?
Okay.
Again, Bob DeRigo Jones, Let's Be Fair.
I'm Bob DeRigo Jones, and this is Let's Be Fair. Dorothy Hamill is one of the most famous figure skaters the United States has ever produced. After winning 4 national championships, she went on to win the Olympic gold medal in 1976. Long before she became a world-class skater, she discovered the thrill of ice skating on a pond near her house in Greenwich, Connecticut. If you go there today, you can still see the pond. But if you'd like to lace up your skates and pretend you're an Olympic medalist, you can't. It's prohibited. 10 years ago, officials in the city banned skating on all the ponds in the community. One of the main reasons for the ban was the concern about liability and getting sued. Let's be fair. We've talked about a lot of ways that America has changed in recent years because of excessive litigation and the growing fear of being sued. But few stories illustrate that any better than the sad fact that boys and girls in Dorothy Hamill's hometown can no longer skate on a pond under the sun and clouds. Learn more. Visit our website at centerforamericatv.org.
Bob Dorigo Jones, before we talk about Dorothy Hamill, I'm on your website, bobdorigojones.com. This monkey has a beautiful smile and took a perfect selfie of itself.
It really is quite amazing. It's one of these photos. It'll be one of the photos of the decade, I'm sure.
I mean, this is a great smile. People should look at this picture because this is what they should do. They should smile when they have their picture taken. Dorothy Hamill, boy, I'll tell you, I used to have a crush on her.
I was just going to say, what guy our age didn't grow up with a Dorothy Hamill?
I mean, what a crush. And just think, for her to get her start on these ponds, and now these ponds are not open to kids like her, I guess, Bob, it just frustrates the hell out of me. These crazy, stupid lawsuits. We've done stories here in the past about people can't sled on hills and stuff. Now you can't skate on ponds.
Yeah, what's the country coming to? You know, when are we going to say enough is enough? We're not willing to take this anymore, and I think we're getting to that point. And I'm hopeful that in the next few years we can make a real dent in this issue.
Bob Dorigo Jones, Center for America. Tell our audience how they could follow you, buddy.
All right, thanks. Hey, I'll see you in Washington, D.C.
No, tell people how they could follow you.
Oh, sorry. They can follow us at centerforamericatv.org. There'll be links there to our blog and to pictures and in the Wacky Warning Label contest that we always like to tell people to try to enter.
And the other site with this monkey's picture on is bobdorigojones.com. Bob, thanks so much for joining us. Take care. God bless, and we'll see you in Washington, my friend.
All right. Thanks again, Rick. Bye-bye.
All right. And we're running out of time. I want to thank our guest today, our most recent guest, Bob Dorigo Jones, Megan Kean, and Mike Gonzalez from the Heritage Foundation. Want to thank Mr. John Forsythe Jr. for working the boards, and a little for being my co-host. But for right now, we're out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio.